Welcome back to Wall Builders Live. Our guest today is Congressman Pete Hoekstra of Michigan. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, it's always good to be with you. Thank you.
Well, we love having you. Appreciate you coming on, and appreciate the good work that you continue to do. I noticed a very interesting article on Sharia Law and the report from the Center for Security Policy, and you're the top Republican on the House Intelligence Committee. If anybody can speak to this, you can. Tell us a little bit more about the danger we face, and I guess most importantly, our attitude towards it, and whether or not as a nation we really understand what we're up against.
Well, that's really why this report is so important. You know, even in the Bush administration and now the Obama administration has continued this lack of definition of the threat that we face in America. Just saying, well, it has nothing to do with religion, and it's just a group of bad actors, who are out to, attack America and, to destroy America, but they never give it much definition. And if you don't understand the threat, you can't contain it, confront it, or defeat it. And so there's a group of individuals that came together under the auspices of the Center for Security Policy, and they developed a report they called the Team B analysis. And it said, hey, we think that there's an alternative viewpoint that ought to be considered and brought forward. And they identified it as individuals who, yes, they are Muslims, and the doctrine that they believe is a supremacist doctrine. They believe that Islam is superior to all other forms of religion, all other beliefs, and that it's their role to take this superior position of Islam and create a caliphate and bring this forward and into the whole world. And so they want this supremacist, they believe in this supremacist philosophy under Sharia law, which is their overall governing document. It goes well beyond religious tenets. It's a whole governing philosophy. They basically say, we want the world to live under this law. It's in total conflict and with representative government, the way of life that we have here in America, and that's the kind of threat that we face. It's a great report putting it all in context.
So we don't did we maybe even name the war wrong? I think it was Newt Gingrich who said a couple of weeks ago on our program we shouldn't have called it the war on terror. We should have called it the war on radical Islam. Do we need to change our terminology?
I think so. I mean, what's the war on terror? There's all kinds of different terrorist groups that are out there, and terror is a tactic. The guy that was in Chicago in the last couple of days who was going to leave the bomb outside of Wrigley Field, that's a terrorist act. We have no indications, at least at this point, that he's identified or affiliated with radical jihadists. I've been saying that for years. I agree with Newt Gingrich. Calling this a war against terror is exactly the wrong thing to do, again, because you don't identify the enemy. You have to identify it, and that's why I think this report is so important. It actually does now put into context the different elements with Islam, and I think clearly articulates this supremacist philosophy that certain parts of Islam subscribe to, and that are really very, very dangerous to the rest of the world.
It seems like by not being willing to name the religion itself, our political correctness gets in the way of being able to deal appropriately with the threat we're facing. The mosque at Ground Zero is a great example of that, but it's not just that. It sounds like this has been systemic throughout the entire war.
It has been, and I couldn't say it any better than what you just said it. It is political correctness and being an unwillingness to identify this threat, and it's also the other flip side of that is the political correctness that leads us to not identify the Christian values and the Christian beliefs on which this government is focused and based on, or should be focused on, and is based on.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we ignore our own history. We mislabel the enemy that we have, and it's almost like we want to lose whenever you look at that. And it's I guess the bright spot here, Congressman, is that I am really surprised at how well the American people have awakened to this. They're not just lulled to sleep. I saw a poll the Independent Women's Forum did of independents, and among independents, 89% are saying that they're still concerned about this, that national defense is a major issue, that the war against radical Islamic terrorism is what's on their mind. I mean, I thought we'd been lulled to sleep, but it seems like you look at the response to the mosque at Ground Zero, you look at this polling data, I'm thinking the administration and the Democrats that haven't been willing to call this what it is and face what it is, and frankly the Republicans too, I think the American people are about to say, hey, we need to shift our focus here.
I think that's exactly right. I spoke to a group on Saturday night, a gathering in Chicago called Right Nation. And it was all about, people talking about economic issues and those types of things. And I kind of just, during my opportunity to talk to the crowd, just kind of, shifted the attention of the folks and saying, we still face a threat from radical jihadists. And I got a very, very warm response and saying, we've just done a lot of things that, number one, are policies that make us less secure. And then I did go through, what happened at Fort Hood, what happened on Christmas Day, what almost happened at Times Square, and identified that in almost each of those cases, this administration and the political pundits, they were so afraid to identify these things as terrorist acts affiliated with radical Islamists. And you come back to the line. If you don't identify it properly, you will never be able to defeat it.
Welcome back to Wall Builders Live. We're still here with Congressman Pete Hoekstra of Michigan talking about the war on radical Islam and how we've mislabeled it, and our political correctness has really put us in a bind, and we've got to get the language right and then be able to correctly identify the enemy so we can win this war. Are you surprised by a lot of people tended to think that the American people wouldn't have an appetite for this long term, that it's a generational war? I think Bush did a great job of at least saying that from the beginning, that this was a generational thing. Are you surprised at the staying power of the American people and their focus on this, that they're not saying, let's just forget about it and come home, that they're saying, hey, let's do this thing right?
No, I think I'm not surprised at all by it, because I think this is one where people look at it and they see that the government is out of step with where they are. Remember, after Fort Hood, I think it took almost 3 months before anybody in the political establishment within the administration was willing to call it a terrorist attack. Almost immediately afterwards, I said, hey, this is most likely a terrorist attack by radical jihadists, and maybe directed or influenced by Anwar al-Awlaki. And people said, oh, there goes Hoekstra, fear-mongering and all of these kinds of things. 90 days later, it's kind of like, you know what? He was right. Nobody said that, but, we were. But the American people, they were with me from the beginning. They recognize when a guy jumps on a table, he screams out, Allah Akbar, which is God is great in Arabic, and starts executing American citizens, American soldiers on a military base, there's maybe some reason to at least suspect that this may be influenced by radical jihadists. And the political experts in the administration said, no, we can't go there. This is a lone wolf. He's acting alone. There's no indication that this has anything to do with religion. And the American people are just sitting there and saying about these folks, how foolish and naive can these people be?
Yeah, it's almost like out of a bad movie. Congressman, I got to tell you, your common sense and your wisdom over the years has been such a source of comfort for me. I'd watch you and Harmon and whoever your colleagues would be at the time on talk shows, and always encouraged by that you just had a great level of discernment. And so now I got to ask you, what's next? We were obviously pulling for you in the governor's race and praying for you. What's next for Congressman Hoekstra?
Well, I appreciate all the support in the governor's race. We're not quite sure. We on election night, when it became clear I was not going to be the next governor of Michigan, I said, this is actually kind of exciting. God's got something more exciting for Diane and I than being governor of Michigan, and we're just kind of waiting to see exactly what doors he's going to open. I think I'm going to stay very much involved on national security issues. Hopefully I'll have an opportunity to continue to be part of the public debate. So we're kind of working through that process and seeing exactly what doors God's going to open for us.
Well, we'll be praying for wisdom for you, and praying that again that discernment kicks in and you're able to make the right choice and where it is. And I guess let me ask you one other thing before I let you go. Should Republicans get the majority in Washington after November, is there in the process and the checks and balances and all that, with Obama still being the one that is directing the agenda as president in the war and engaging in the war, will a Republican Congress be able to take a more tactful approach? Is there a lot that can be done to shift this thing back in the right direction so we can win?
I think you'll be able to move it, but you're not going to be able to make a seismic change in the agenda in Washington. What you might be able to do is, and this is all, it's all about, exactly what can you do if you've got a Democrat Senate and a President Obama. We will be able to shift the debate, shift what gets done, but it's then really going to be set up for what will be a seismic battle in 2012 to take this country back. This is really the first skirmish, the first fight in doing that, and taking back this government and putting it back and moving in the right direction. But it's a start, and I think it will be. I think there will be a Republican speaker in 2011. But there's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done. People are going to have to be engaged. People are going to have to hold Republicans accountable to make sure that they stay true to the vision of the American people, and then set the framework for 2012.
So it's got to be a long-term approach. We got to be looking at this as more than one election and say, hey, price of freedom's eternal vigilance. We need to be there every election cycle. But certainly to turn this thing around is going to take at least the 2 elections, and maybe even more than that, to really see that change, which you as a student of history know that first war on terror was 32 years and 7 years of armed conflict. It wasn't overnight, and in the same way, we got to have that same approach, I think, in long term.
And we need vigilance between elections.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but yeah, and you guys do it. You do a great job, and you're doing a wonderful job in educating the American people on our roots and our heritage and what that means. For current America and for the future of this country.
Well, thanks for all that you do. We'll be praying for you and determining what's next chapter for you. But thanks for your incredible service to our country. We are very, very blessed to have had you in Congress, and just appreciate your time to come on the show and share with us today. And keep speaking out so we can get informed about these things.
All right. Hey, great. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. You as well. That's Congressman Pete Hoekstra of Michigan. We'll be back in a moment with David Barton.